Okay, we should be recording. I reckon let's get started now. So welcome everyone to our first Ask an Expert for 2024. Today's topic will be on seamless schedule unification. So you've got lots to learn in this one. Just before we do get started, I'd just like to run through some housekeeping. So next slide. Perfect. My name is Gemma Petroni and I'm the marketing coordinator at Sensei. I was country. I would like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land in which we are meeting today. As we come together, we are drawing on the rich storytelling history of the world's oldest living culture to share knowledge and learn from each other. I'd just like to let everyone know that we will be recording today's session, so if you do miss anything, you'll have the chance to view the recording, which will be available this afternoon. Can I please just ask that everyone utilises the raise hand tool if you do have any questions? Otherwise, you can type them in the chat box. Finally, if we could all remain on mute while the presentation is going. And now I'd like to hand over to our experts for today, which will be Mark and Ryan. So over to you guys.
Thank you, Gemma. Hello, lovely people. Lovely to have you on your lunch break, I assume. So hopefully we will have, an hour of power here, Ryan. A very interesting topic that we have. What do you think? Are we going to spark some interest?
I think we are. This is a topic that has been in use since they built the pyramids, but is now an entirely new way of thinking about things going forward. So I think this is going to be a good one.
Yeah, look,
I want to see some of this.
Me too. No, I'm kidding. So the mystery of seamless schedule unification, a wonderful term that we came up with internally by wanting to ensure that organizations and users work the way that they want to work. So we will go a little bit through the concept, of course, of scheduling just to set the scene, and then what multi-schedules actually means and seamless schedule unification means, and what that actually have to do with resources, especially in an organization that needs to manage constraints. And one of the biggest constraints that an organization has is, of course, apart from money, is resources. And both of that are very much impacted by the way that we schedule, of course. So let's get going. The first thing that I would like to do in this session is actually put out a poll. Gemma, would you mind just bringing up the poll? And what kind of schedule do you currently use? Now, please, you do have the ability to use multiple parts if you do. So please, select the ones that you currently use. There are just a couple of sort of the most utilized ones. We will see what comes out of it. Well, I can already see based on our 15 responses, even though we have 30 people here. Come on, guys, you can do that. Polling in 18. I will stop complaining once we have 25. So please make sure that you respond to it. And Ryan, we can already see MS Project, Microsoft Planner. Oh, look at that.
MS Project is still the queen, you know.
Yeah, it's still the grand dame of scheduling. Yeah. But you can also see that actually quite a lot of, agile tools are coming about, right? Jira, DevOps, Trello, even Planner. So the ability for us to utilize that. So yeah, thank you very much. Clearly, there is still a big need for scheduling, and we can also see that actually quite a few different schedule tools are managed. Or projects are managed in that way. All right. So thank you for the poll. Well, the first and ultimate question is, of course, what's the schedule? Well, Ryan, what do you think? And I hope that please not just raise your hands, open up your mics and let me know, what do you think a schedule is?
You've got your crystal ball there. Here's the one I happen to that lives on my desk. And schedule, okay, so I'm going to give what I think it is. It's a tool for predicting the future. But I'm seeing as time changes, it's still about predicting the future. But I think people are becoming very focused on just having visibility into tasks and insights. Yeah. And we're almost weakening the ability to predict the future because that can be a bit complicated. So we sort of want the best of both worlds there. So we need the crystal ball, but it's got to be simple.
Yeah, and look how boring it would be if we would be able to predict the future with the schedule and everything works the way that we planned it. Oh my God, we would live in a perfect world. Any other view on the schedule and the ultimate purpose of scheduling?
I was going to say it's my promise. When I write a schedule, it's my promise of how I'm going to deliver and when I'm going to deliver the outcomes that our goals are.
Yeah, that is a very good point, Ben. And yes, you're absolutely right. It's the promise, the contract that the project manager or the user who manages an initiative gives to their sponsor, to their business, saying, hey, I predict the future of these things that need to happen in order to have our initiative completed. So yes, Ryan, I always like to say the same thing. For me, a schedule predicts the future. And thank you. Can you just show me that crystal ball again? You either have that crystal ball, has never worked for me, unfortunately, or you just simply have that schedule. Now, look, I was hoping that someone comes out and says, yeah, but you know, my Agile, my Kanban doesn't predict the future. Yeah, I wonder what kind of thoughts are there in terms of the types of schedule that are in the market. I mean, when we started this journey, Ryan, in 1893, well, it feels like it. You know, we still exactly. Yeah. You know, there was one schedule tool that ruled them all, and anybody in an organization that wanted to manage a project had to utilize things like Primavera, awesome tool, really detailed with predictability, MS Project, you know, an easy user interface about a hard topic of scheduling, of course, and I think that's why a lot of people still get confused about the capability. But really, they were sort of the prominent tools when it came to scheduling. Of course, this has changed now, and that also brings us then really to the purpose of why is seamless schedule unification so important? Well, if you only have one tool that rules them all, well, a seamless schedule unification doesn't really make sense. But we know that in an organization, work needs to be conducted and work needs to be planned. And that work really happens on every single level of our staff members or of our colleagues. We all need to either manage our personal work to get stuff done. Project managers need to manage projects. Program and portfolio managers need to be able to manage the work of programs and portfolios. And because there's such a big variety of different ways of working, that's actually the justification why there are these days so many different schedule tools. And this is really only, I'm going to call them the top 5. I'm sure that there are other, you know, of course, you know, the Primaveras of the world or the Trellos or even now Monday.com. We all know what Monday looks like. We don't know what Tuesday looks like, but Monday we definitely know how that looks like. So, you know, that there was and is clearly a need for us to manage tasks, work, and assign them to the right resources. Now, there are some other consequences, of course, that schedule outlines: predictability of costing, time, of course, of effort, balancing resources, all of these wonderful things. But ultimately, it is mapping or assigning work to my resources. Now, why is it so important that we have this seamless schedule unification? Well, because we need to ensure that we have a 100% user adoption of managing work and providing visibility and trustworthy insights, because ultimately, by predicting the future of an outcome, we can actually redirect or navigate through the cliffs or through the icebergs, as I always like to say, whereby things that have happened in the past where we can't change them anymore. But schedules and work and planning that work literally allows us to adjust the way that we deliver. And ultimately, the work that we deliver has one purpose. Do you know what that purpose is, Ryan? What's the work that we deliver?
ultimately you need some sort of strategic goal, and you should be working towards that.
That's exactly right. Look, everybody works towards the accomplishment of our organizational goals, strategic goals, departmental goals, whatever that might be. And in order for us to make this effective as possible, we need to make sure that we collect all of that information from all of those different capabilities. And that's why seamless schedule unification is so important. Now, I wonder, Ryan, what determines the type of schedule that I would use in an initiative? And I call them initiatives because it could be product management, it could be project management, it could be business as usual work, it could be anything that I need to plan. But what actually constitutes that?
So if we think a little bit differently here, people, process, technology, and it's all about people first, I think the person and what they're comfortable with will come up with how they want to approach it. Then it'll be the type of work they're doing, and then the tool they've got available. So I think you may think differently about it. I may use Post-it notes for that particular job.
That's exactly right. So really, in the industry lingo, I would call that project management maturity. We know that projects are not exclusively managed by professional project managers. Everybody needs to conduct work. So subject matter experts need to be able to utilize the tool that they feel comfortable with. And when I think about it in terms of project management, managing risks and issues or change requests is actually the easy part, I'm going to say. Yes, you need to be rigor, need to manage that, but filling that in and thinking about it, everybody can do that. The difficult part is that predicting of the future and the scheduling behind it. Really.
That's a whole mindset that a lot of people lack.
Yeah. So definitely project management maturity. So we want to be able to provide all levels of users the ability to manage their work and their initiatives. The second part, well, how many developers do you know that says, I love managing my sprints in MS Project? Just doesn't happen, right?
It's not.
So really, that second part, and this is meant to be a waterfall, by the way. It's not this icon. It was as good as it gets. It's an abstract waterfall. The second purpose that determines the schedule is actually the methodology. Especially in the software industry, or in business industry, agile has really come and creeped into every organization. Most organizations these days have what they refer to as a hybrid approach, where you still need to know in design and planning, you need to have that rigor of time and determining potential outcomes and costing and budgets, etc. But then the way that you execute it or plan and execute it is actually in an agile way, and that's where the wonderful tools of Jira or DevOps came into place. And can you imagine a software development team without the way of managing agile these days?
No, I think even without knowing it, that they're all doing a job.
Yeah. Well, because it's easier to
makes sense.
flexible. Yeah, exactly. And we always say in the long design, I wouldn't want to build a house in an agile fashion and suddenly say, oh, you know what, between level 12 and 13, can we sort of put in a 12.5 in there? So there are, of course, by nature of the initiative, we need to determine how far do we need to predict the future of the outcome, right? Well, and then lastly, I also believe, because scheduling has to do with predicting what type of constraints I need to deal with, and that's namely resource constraints. So I also believe that general resource planning requires a schedule. Yeah. Now, this could be as simple as saying, hey, I've got, Ryan, over a particular amount of time, I want you to do this, and you just simply punch in the hours. But in many ways, anything that you need to forward plan, and resources, human resources, you do need to forward plan most of the time, actually enable us to, or scheduling enables us to do that. So these are really the variations that I see of why we actually use different schedule tools. Now, behind that, we know that schedule managed works, but we also know that work is not equal work. Now I say that because, okay, when you boil it down, work is work, but the type of work is different. So we know, for example, that non-project work in terms of managing work needs to be managed. We could refer to this as either operational work or business as BAU work, business as usual work, where we literally have the ability to say, hey, Ben, I want you this week to do, I don't know, support. So I'm going to just assign you to that so that you know where you are assigned to. And with that, we have the ability to balance, of course, our resources. Well, and then the other type of work is, of course, the project work or initiative work and the ways that we work with that work or the way that we plan with that work. Is it in waterfall where I plan all the way from start to finish? Is it in an agile way where I actually work in a scrum and sprint approach? You know, it's interesting. And it's actually one of those things where people say, well, but, you know, in a traditional sense, I get this. You know, you have a task, you have the effort of that task, you assign a resource that gives you the duration, the start and finish date. But in an agile world, that's not how we work. We don't have that timeline. Would you agree with that, Ryan?
I would. It's more focused on we have the people. The timeline will work out based on what those people can do. And how you measure that is how you predict your future.
Well, that's fair enough. However, if you think about it, even in the agile, you do actually plan. You plan time. You plan time on sprints.
Yeah, you do plan time in sprints, and it's not open-ended, despite what people may think. You have to adjust to get to a promise. It's already about the promise.
Yeah, and obviously the way it depends how you manage agiles. Agiles in a project, yes, you need to deliver that promise. Agile in something like, you know, safe agile framework. It's almost like an assembly line of work that keeps on going into the teams. I always say that, you know, agile projects are very much resource-focused projects, whereby waterfall projects are task-focused projects. Because
that's a good way to break it down.
Yeah. So really, for us, tasks manage work, schedules manage tasks, and the assignment of those tasks to resources. That's ultimately why scheduling is so important. Now, when it comes to the actual schedule capability in as a standalone project manager, you can actually do this in a schedule, and you know what kind of resources you need. But if you work in a big environment where you are where you are constrained with the commitment of receiving those resources, that really becomes an issue. So for us, resource management plays a very big part in the schedule. In order for me to predict the outcome, I need to know the resources. In order for me to know whether these resources are available or not, I need to do that resource management component. And that's really where it comes to resource scheduling versus resource requesting. You know, they're really almost two separate actions that you need to do. So as a project manager, you do need to, you know, create your schedules and need to assign your resources to the tasks, allowing you to potentially even have resources entering their timesheet against the task so that you know exactly what task has been completed. So this really is sort of that project manager view, and it doesn't matter what kind of tool you use, ultimately you do that as well. And yes, you do that in an agile fashion too. The part is you just don't assign the resources to tasks, but you tell them this sprint, you assign the resources to the sprint and say, hey, Ryan, Ben, Georgia, we are a team for the next 2 sprints, and we just have to work our way down. So as a project manager, we want to do this, but then we want to ensure that these resources are actually also available. So for us, what we do is we actually schedule so that we know what resources we need, and then we communicate to our resource manager via a so-called resource plan what the need for me is for this initiative. The resource manager doesn't mind which tasks a resource is working on. That's too much clutter. Most resource managers or team leads, they're interested in, hey, how long do you need Ryan, or how long do you need Ben? So what we do is we literally consolidate the work, the effort that is planned on a schedule and move that into a resource plan. And that resource plan, we then request the resources, and the resource manager can then approve those resources. And that can happen in a whole bunch of different ways. You know, this can happen based on generic resources. Hey, I need a business analyst, I need a project and a project manager, I need a developer. Who do you have available? And the resource manager, which is his job or her job, says, well, I need to, oh, look, there's, you know, Ryan available and Ben is available. They have the skill set. I assign them to that. So that's the concept of the resource plan. And I'll show this in a second as well when we when we go into the details. So I always therefore say that scheduling in an organization requires the glue that brings them all together, the umbrella that acts above the schedule, and that really is ultimately our resource plan. So again, as a project manager, I do want to be able to schedule and assign my resources to the task. I then want to be able to request my resources to whoever is in charge to approve those. These resource managers or team leads then approve that resource commitment, so commit to the resources, so that I actually now in my project have the ability to work with that. So that's why I say for us, the resource plan is really that overarching glue, that overarching umbrella that enables you to request resources no matter what kind of schedule tool you use. All right, so I know we talked a lot about the schedules and the different purpose of it. I want to showcase that a little bit as well, because in the industry, what is called adaptive project management these days really means that, hey, you don't have to follow the one process that suits, that fits everything. You actually have the ability to manage your initiative as you want to, as long as you provide me with the formal information required in terms of budgets, in terms of deliverables, in terms of time. And that's super important. But before I showcase that, I do have one more poll that I would be very interested to hear what the audience has. Do you know how many schedule tools you have in your organization? What do you think? Is it like, I don't have any? Is it 4 or more? We should have put on more. I hope they're not more than 4.
I think we're going to need them more though.
Yeah,
Excel doesn't count, by the way.
Yeah, Excel. Yes, Excel doesn't count.
Well, it probably does, you know.
Yeah, actually, it does. Yeah. And, sort of look, I mean, clearly, yeah, we should have put more than 4. So I'm just going to assume 4 or more. And yeah, look at this, I mean, a minimum, no one has just one.
No one's got one.
No.
That means everyone has a reporting and a visibility insight problem in some form.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's interesting because 10 years ago when we used to implement only Project Server or Project Online, it was one tool and there was that one schedule you had to use. And
one person's got one. Well done.
Oh yes, cool. Yeah.
But Mark, it is true. But back in the old days, we put one tool in, and if people couldn't adapt to it, it was their fault and their problem. Instead of just recognizing that maturity differs, work differs. Let people work what they want. So the people with 4, you may have a problem, but there's a solution to this problem.
Yeah. And it's not really a problem. It's the recognition, as you quite rightly said, of the maturity. In the past, when we started this journey in 1893, we always said, hey, dear company, you need to increase your project management maturity in order to manage projects. Quite arrogant, actually, if you think about it, right? And how often has that actually worked? It was always that love-hate relationship between the user and the project management tool, because they said, oh, just do that to report up. They never really got anything out of it.
They turned the crystal ball part off just so they could keep management happy.
That's Yeah, that's exactly right. And, you know, we've seen that schedules were only maintained for financial purposes, for example, right? Instead of actually determining the schedule outcome and predicting the future is the important bit. So, yeah, clearly over the last 10 years, this has dramatically changed. And the recognition that, you know, projects is nothing else but work. It's actually the work that counts, and how you then classify the work and how you govern that work is actually then very often a very departmental or even a very individual way of dealing with that. So yeah, so it's definitely an interesting part. And if you think about seamless schedule unification, the translation of that really is adaptive project management, meaning project management needs to adapt to the needs of the users who conduct the work, not adoption, which means a user need to adopt a tool that was just developed the way that it was, right? And that's really the difference. All right, so that's theory. I think I'll show a little bit, a couple of things, and I'm going to go and I'm going to tap dance a little bit, and I do this on the basis of Altus. And look, this is not meant to be a sales spiel. It is meant to outline how you can digitize a solution to the problem of managing work on all levels, and therefore ultimately also managing the constraints that you live under as an organization in terms of finance, in terms of risk, in terms of resources, and of course in terms of time. All right, let me see. Here's one I prepared earlier. So this one here, what you see is, and this is literally just our play pit. Data is not quite clean here, but I can play with that a little bit, so I can show you how this actually would look in a real world environment. So Altus is our project portfolio management solution built on the Microsoft Power Platform, of course, so that we can ensure to fulfill organizational specific needs, and every organization has that. But let's assume you are in an organization where multiple departments have multiple different schedule tools. So first of all, irrespectively of the schedule tools, which is really only a puzzle piece of the overarching project, will enable us to get an overarching view. So this overarching view is a list of all of my projects with my finish dates and my percentage completed, and I can also see the different schedule tools that are actually used. So here is a Jira schedule, for example. Here's a project for the web, which they will very shortly call Planner Premium project. Here's a DevOps project. Altus has a lightweight schedule tool as well, but that's really only for users who don't have a schedule but still need to do sort of that lightweight schedule. And then you see we've got MS Project here, and we've got Planner here, we've got Project for the Project Online here. So there's a whole bunch of different schedule tools that combine an overarching picture. And this overarching picture from an organizational perspective needs to look something like that. So I'm a PMO. I don't really mind how you manage the work that you do, but I do need to have an understanding where we are currently in terms of our performance, our key performance indicator, traffic lights, etc. And you do have the ability, of course, to very easily update, formalize the project status update, and that can be viewed accordingly. So this is really, again, that umbrella, the project umbrella, that allows you to utilize any type of schedule tool. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I'll start with Jira. I'm sure there are lots of Jira people in there, and based on the questions that we will go to at the end, I actually did notice that the questions, you know, how can you help us with the agile journey? Well, let's not forget the agile journey and the waterfall journey is the way that you work. The way that we help is actually bringing that together to provide you that overarching picture of that, how you manage your tasks, or how you manage your resource deliverables is actually individual and departmental specific. As I said, here in my Agile Kanban extension project, that is clearly a software development project, and I do want my team, my development team, to work in the tool of their choice. So what they do is some of them may not even have exposure to Altus, who manages that governance and project layer, but they are of course manage their Kanban, they have their goals, and they have the ability to run their sprints and do all of that in the tool that they love, and that's either Jira or DevOps. And what we do is we then just simply synchronize that information in the background, so that as a project manager, I can at least have my list and my sprints that I have. And I can even go as far as saying, you know what, I want to report on some of that information that I may not have in my Agile tool. So the concept of a milestone, for example, does not exist in a particular Agile tool. But what I can do is I can now say, hey, I'm going to tag additional information that I need to be able to report, or that I need to be able to formalize. So that really gives you the ability to interact and put that project management layer on top of the sprints and on top of all of the execution of the work. So things like financials. We know that Jira doesn't do financials, for example, but of course we need to make sure that we understand what's our actual, what's our forecast, how do we, what kind of period do we want to have this on a fiscal year basis, or do I want to know, where this finance, this forecast then actually comes from? Is that against my budgets? Is that against my variation? So we have the ability to manage all of that. And if you don't like it in that mode, you can move it into sort of a vertical mode. So you have the ability as a project manager to manage all of that type of information in almost an Excel-like experience of the financial world, right? Document management, very clearly, we need to make sure that documents are maintained, and collaboration with teams, by the way, where we ensure that these teams are there. And in addition to that, of course, we need to be able to manage things like risks, issues. Now, issues may, in that instance, funnily enough, I don't have issues. You know why? Well, because issues are actually managed in Jira, that was the original idea of Jira, actually. But what I can now do is I can formalize the update of that particular project. So I can say, hey, I'm going to create a new project status update. And what it does is it collects all of that information now together. I need to give that my status date, and then I just simply give it a comment. You may even have the ability to say, hey, I want to duplicate my last week's comment, and I just amend that accordingly. So you have that ability. And once you've done that, you save and close, and you have updated your project. And that's it. You have formalized the update of your project, which then of course in turn means that you have the ability to automatically create your status reports or your dashboard. So all of that insights and visibility that we have will actually be available in that sense. So as you can see, this is now a paginated report, but the data set is the important thing. The unified ability for me to manage that work. Now, if I manage that in a waterfall schedule, I can actually very easily then move the assignment into my resource plan. Or if I'm in an agile environment where I actually don't have task assignment to my resources, I just simply use a resource plan where I, as a project manager, say, hey, I need to have a DBA, and I requested this DBA, and then my resource manager assigned Matt to this particular project. So that's how we want to ensure that the communication between the schedule and the resource request becomes seamless. Now I want to give you another. This is just one of those examples. We had a question of saying, well, you know what? We have lots of MS Planner, Microsoft Planner projects in there. So what we actually do is when you create a new project, you have the ability to determine, well, what type of schedule would I like to have? You can even change that halfway through if you say, oh, look, the Planner plan was too easy. I needed to have something else. you can change that. But this is how we ensure that the user actually manages the project as they want. So here, for example, is my HR survey event. Don't need a complicated schedule. I just need to manage that in my planner plan. And what you see here is now again, as a project manager or as a user that manages the initiative, I still need to manage potential documents or finances, but my entire team is actually working on my planner plan. So all they have access here, who is available, let me just have a look here, Bucky and Happy and Matt and Pepper Potts, they're all working on that, and I can now see who has what tasks assigned to. They can very easily just, make this complete and manage their work in a very intuitive way. And it's quite amazing. A lot of these, schedule tools like Planner is actually already very rich in its capability, and I would say that a lot of initiatives can actually just simply manage that in their own plan. By the way, the Planner plan is part of your Office 365 subscription. It doesn't actually require you to have an additional license unless you then want to go into Planner Premium. So a lot of our organizations actually work with that Planner, and this is a prime example where we then again say, hey, that's great. I can go to my Planner, of course, and it automatically synchronizes that. It usually takes a minute or two, or alternatively, you can just simply say, okay, there was a change in here. Let me just manually synchronize that information. So that's what we mean with the seamless schedule unification, where you manage your schedules in comparison to the rest of the project. Another part that I wanted to showcase, so right now we seamlessly integrate with obviously our own lightweight schedule tool, but with Planner and Planner Premium. As soon as that new version comes out, we will make sure that you have the ability to have that seamless integration and real-time synchronization as well. And of course, and we saw this even in the feedback, a lot of our customers still use either Project Online or they use MS Project these days. As we know, Project Online is not something that Microsoft will continue to innovate in. But MS Project is a tool that will still be used in many years to come. So we are working right now on that ability for you to use MS Project. As you can see that here, this is an MS Project plan, and I can link this project plan now to my environment. Now this is still in the early design phase, by the way. This will probably be available in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Now, where is it? Oops. Oh, sorry. Must have pushed the wrong button here. Let me just open that up again. Let me just open up the schedule again. So here's my schedule. I can now literally synchronize that task where it asks me, who are you? Can you actually synchronize that? And then it goes through some environments. Again, we'll make sure that it loads those environments. Oops, that's on the wrong screen. Sorry, let me just move that over. Come here. There we go. No. Oh, there we go, yep. And I can now say, okay, here is my instance, my Altus instance, and I want to link this to my resource plan for BAU work that I'm going to plan, and you can then just simply plan it from here. That will now synchronize the task, and it will allow us to map our global resources in Altus to the resources that you currently have in your plan. Just wanted to outline how this works in MS Project, so that that seamless schedule unification happens. Now, once we have done all of the scheduling across all of our different projects, and we have in that instance then implemented actually, let me just go back one, implemented our resource demand. So in that instance, we have the BAU work. I can go into my resource plan and I can say, hey, I need for this BAU work, I need to have a developer available, and I need to have maybe a contractor available. And from here, I then have the ability to literally say either in hours or in FTEs or in percentage capacity. You have the ability then to just simply say, hey, I need a resource for those for those 3 months that is fully working on BAU type work. I can submit that, and that now brings it to the resource manager. So scheduling doesn't necessarily mean a schedule tool that manages tasks. Scheduling also means, well, on the highest level, and that really means a resource on an operational initiative, in that instance BAU work, where the lowest level is the project and the time is really assigned here as a as a placeholder. Of course, I can then, as a resource manager, look at my list of resources. I get a notification. Get a notification where I literally now have a list. As a resource manager, have a list of all of the projects that requested that work. And as you can see, here is my project resource plan BAU work. And right now I only see the contractor. I didn't see the developer here. The reason why that is because the developer is a different resource manager, or a different team lead is in charge of that developer, and he would get that. Just so that I can prove that, because I've got God's rights, I'm just going to take this out here so that you can see I can actually now look at my entire list of projects, and here I can now see my contractor, my developer, my project manager. And from here on in, I can literally now say, okay, I would like to add a resource to that. And here's now the list of the resources that have that skill sets. And I can also see their availability for the time frame that there are. So here, for example, Bruce Banner, well, that sounds quite good. He has the availability. I select Bruce, and what happens now is Bruce has been assigned to this resource plan, and the work that needs to be conducted is now committed because Bruce has the availability. We can see that it automatically did that. When I save that information, the project manager of this initiative will now know that the resource is actually committed to their project. So that's where the interaction between schedules that says, this is how many resources I need. These are the tasks that I have. These are the resources that I need. I communicate that through the resource plan to my resource manager. My resource manager approves them, and I can then work on my project. So that's one of the main reasons why we actually wanted to ensure that all of the schedule tools and common schedule tools are actually seamlessly integrated in that overarching solution, so that I can have an overarching picture, by the way, not just on my project, but also on my personal work that I've been assigned to, with all of the tasks that I've been assigned to through the schedule, all the way to, from a resource perspective, where I can now say, from an organizational perspective, I can say, hey, this is my capacity of all of the resources that I have. This is the work that we currently have. Wow, look at this. We need to get some more work in order to occupy all of our resources. So you can then, of course, add new projects, schedule them again, and have the ability to utilize your resources. So that's really just a quick view, a little bit of tap dancing in terms of why schedule unification is so important. 100% user adoption, the ability for me to allow a user, project manager, subject matter expert, allow them to work the way that they want, still with the slither of governance in terms of the formal information of financial management, resource management, etc. All right. So I hope that that quick world view has given you a bit of an idea of what it is. I'm conscious of time. We still have about 15 minutes. I want to run through a couple of questions that were pre-submitted. So thank you very much. And hopefully we have a couple of very good questions here in the forum as well. So one question, understand how you can still use MS Project for 2 weeks look ahead while integrating with other platforms for scheduling. So I think what this means is you can actually do your schedule in MS Project, but then you move that into the resource plan so that you can continuously manage in that schedule. I think that is really how I would handle that. And it kind of goes into, you know, having multiple project management tools. Well, I would assume project management tools in terms of schedule for the same project could be seen as duplication, the project manager workload unnecessarily. Could you please indicate what are the benefits and what to avoid when combining 2 PM tools, MS Project Planner and others in the same project? Well, it's interesting. I actually don't see that happening all too often. You can see that the project needs to manage resources, but it's very uncommon that a project manager uses MS Project and a Jira team uses uses Jira and wants to combine that. The way that you would do that is you wouldn't want to have every single task in the schedule. You just simply say in project, in that instance, 2-week sprints, sprint 1, sprint 2, sprint 3, if you wanted to formalize it that way. If you work with different teams, then that is, of course, the way that I would deal with it.
There's another thing here and there. We need to think of, why does this PM think they need 2 tools? If they're using one tool to effectively do reporting, like an MS Project to track milestones and the detailed work is done in Planner, for example, well, with Altus, it integrates in, we have dashboards for milestones, dashboards for tasks. It can actually replace the need for that second tool. So as Mark says, the integration and the dashboards will generally mean you only need one. The whole point of this is one tool, you don't need the others.
Yeah. And look at, interestingly enough, I mean, I have heard this, and funnily enough, James, our architect of tools, we talked about that. He said, well, you know, I want to be able to fusion 2 schedule tools into that one. And I said, well, it's generally really hard. As long as we provide the information on a project level, we need to understand what information do I need. As a project manager, by having a team that runs their IT section in an agile fashion, I need to know the sprints, and I need to know, I need to know the resources that are there, but I don't need to know every single task. Sorry, my daughter, she goes. And she didn't know that I was actually on an Ask the Expert session with lots of people on it. That's the way it is. So yeah, so that's bringing them all together in Altus is an easy way. How can Altus help with MS Project schedules? I already outlined that, so watch that space. If you're an Altus user and you use MS Project, you want to have that seamless integration, please contact us. We are actually looking at some companies that do the testing as well. Interested to see the native integration with Planner, noting this is the replacement for project for the web, please. It's not quite true. So the way that Microsoft these days considers scheduling is with the understanding that there need to be lightweight schedules. That's where Planner comes into place. Kanban, lists, and for a lot of projects, that's actually okay. Microsoft then will offer, which right now is called Project for the Web, they will call this Planner Premium. They will then go and say, well, if you change your needs and you need to manage things like dependencies, critical path, time-phased assignment, then you can actually upgrade your Planner plan to a Planner Premium plan, aka Project for the Web plan. So for the user itself, that experience will actually be seamless. All it will do is it will add new capabilities as you progress. And it does happen where we thought, oh, this is an easy project. And as we then drill down, we recognize, oh, actually, that's more complicated. I think the way that Microsoft goes down that path right now, I really like. I'm really happy that they actually finally reduced or eliminated the confusion about MS Project, Planner, Project for the Web. They were all words thrown into one big bucket and no one really understood what that means. In March, April, Microsoft will release the concept of Planner Premium to actually unify that terminology. Tracking project and MS Project we already talked about. The other one was here, how can Sensei help me in line with an agile approach? How does this process work in a product managed? So for us, it is actually, we accommodate for the way you want to work. So most organizations work in a hybrid environment, and that is actually justified. I think organizations that are working in a pure agile environments are only few of them that actually got the grasp of all of that. But for us, it really means we boil down what data set it is we actually need in order to provide a picture, and that is tasks, that is resource assignments to those tasks, even if it's just on a sprint level, and combining that. So task, effort, resource, time. These are, no matter what schedule tool you use, these are always the ingredients of it all. And what we do is we take that information and bring this into a consolidated view. That's the reason why we can actually accommodate for agile, waterfall and hybrid, because we understand the underlying data sets. Now you can still manage your project, of course, in an agile fashion, whereby another project may be managed in a waterfall fashion. So that's how we help that. Here, another one of those questions, what approach would you use on a client IT project with 10,000 tasks in DevOps and 1,000 man days of effort and 2 years duration? Would you create a level 1, level 2 tasking project for the web and level 3 and level 4 in Azure DevOps? Yes, I would almost say, but the only and I wouldn't even put that into project for the web, to be quite frank. My question would be, what do you want to achieve with the project for the web schedule? So if you're in a hybrid environment, I would almost understand that, where you say, okay, I've got a project for the web and I want to just simply outline, here are the timelines for my sprints. Then I would definitely do that. But in all honesty, I would say the primary tool there would definitely be DevOps, because that's what your resources use. Translate then what you need out of that tool, and you then integrate it accordingly. So I'm sure you're not interested in, in all of the, how many, 10,000 tasks, but you're interested, hey, what have we accomplished in sprint 2? What was the deliverables of sprint 2? So that's how I would.
When I saw the 10,000 mark, it was like 10,000, 2 years. It's a big piece of work going on. Yeah. This is not just a tactical question. There's a lot of questions within that one, and it's a bit of a process thing. They're talking about resourcing. They're talking about time sheeting. You assume there's tracking. You assume there's forward planning. We need to look at all those things together. This is not just this is the best tool. It's really going to be a process question, combination of tools, and I think this needs more reports and less tools. Can you maintain 10,000 tasks in reality? History tells us it's very difficult, so let's think of another way.
Well, in DevOps you definitely can, I think, but from a project management perspective, I need to make sure that my project team is always available and committed. So you don't even need to have a schedule. You go into the resource plan and you say, these, how many these, these 5 or 10 or 15 resources that are on that project, I just simply request them for that month, because you don't need to know what task they're working on. In an agile world, you need to know that's my team, and that team now works on this project. So it's actually quite easy to manage that resource demand. You don't need to have that detailed schedule. I would still manage that definitely in DevOps, yeah. Okay, so there's one more, I think, here. We have Altus, project for the web, and Teams, Microsoft Teams, I would think Planner. Do we switch between all three, or is there an easier way to do the work within Teams only? So I want to, there's actually a really good question, just so that I showed that as well. The information and within the project that we have seen here, you can, of course, manage that in Teams too. And as you can see, depending on depending on the project, the task tab in your Teams will automatically display the tool that you've chosen. So if it's Planner Plan, when you go into, when you go into my, if I go into my this one here is my HR survey. When I go into my tasks now, okay, sorry, I'm not logged on here. You will actually see here tasks.office. So this will show you the Planner Plan. I just haven't got the authentication here, that's all. But at the same time, I do have, as a project team, still all of my additional information that requires my project work to be done in a structured way, plus of course the information that I need in terms of Teams. Not to mention that you can post and manage all of your files in Teams. So you can exclusively work in Teams, or you can exclusively work in Power Apps. That's really just the way that you collaborate. The data, Teams is nothing else but a window into those different capabilities, and they are brought together through those different tabs. So that's how I would describe that. So I would definitely, if your team is used to working in Teams and collaborates in Teams and does project management in Teams, yeah, definitely use it in Teams and still use any type of schedule tool that you're interested in. And what else? Oh yeah, wow, I love this one. Before I open up to questions, because we only have 5 minutes left. What does success look like in 12 months with this technology? That's an outstandingly good question. Ryan, what do you think? Let's say a customer has used Altus for 12 months. What would you constitute as success?
So I would constitute within 12 months. There's a big question, crystal ball. However, it's can you trust data, and are you making decisions with that data? Are executives carrying their iPad around and saying, look, I can see here, this is what's going on with resourcing. No, I'm not hiring any new people because you're not busy. Or, hey, I see and believe you when you tell me you're busy. Let's hire new people, for example. That's the ultimate goal.
Thank you, Ryan.
Sub-goals are user adoption.
Yeah. User adoption is part of that journey, but yes, are you able to make data-driven objective decisions to ensure the outcome of your business goals? That's what I would describe it as success. Now, there may be different levels. You may have only implemented it in a particular department, but even this department has goals to deliver. And these goals can be balancing your resources, making sure that the work that we promised can be conducted. So that's really what I would constitute as success. And with that, look at this, 4 minutes left. Do we have some questions? There were some questions being asked already. Are there any other questions that are coming from the audience? Don't be shy.
Through the chat, there was a question, a general sort of bit of a running question around resource pools in different tools and how we integrate all this together. Yeah. And it's ultimately about, the question really is does it become a single resource pool in Altus?
Yes.
Yes, it does. And it's fed by the others, though. It's not that you're duplicating as such. We integrate, so we feed these in. There's also a question on just the version on what you showed, the MS Project integration. Which version can you connect to? I don't actually know the answer. I said it's the subscription version, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so it will be the desktop version. Well, look, if you are in MS Project 98, then I would strongly recommend that you upgrade that. But definitely the current MS Project Professional or desktop version, as Microsoft calls that. If you are subscribed to Microsoft 365, and if you have that through your subscription, you get the latest and greatest anyway. But what it technically does is, because it's the only way that you can do it, you have to install an add-on that will then be visible in your ribbon, and that's how that works. It's actually technically quite old technology. That's because MS Project is built on that, still on that type of technology. Oh, it works great, but yeah, that's how it works. But look, just to close this meeting in terms of the enterprise resource pool, well, that's actually key. So in order to make all of this work, the schedule tools need to and do actually integrate with the Altus global resource pool, because that's the part that we need to, where we need to manage the constraint. We need to know, do I have 100 users, do I have 1,000 users, do I have 10,000 users, because that will determine how much assignment I can do. So you map in MS Project, you map actually into the Altus global resource pool as much as you do that in Planner. Planner does that anyway, and Project for the Web does that anyway. So yeah, that's how that works. So yes, the holy grail is really the global resource pool and the resource plan, because the resource plan also feeds the forecast cost in your finance automatically, and the timesheet automatically can feed the actual cost back into your financials as well. Yeah. Okay, now look at this. On time, as always. Oops, sorry.
Because you scheduled it.
Yes, because I had my crystal ball. I just wanted to point out the next steps. Gemma, anything that you want to point out there, saying please keep on the lookout. Obviously, we will share our slide deck. Make sure that you get that. If you have any kind of questions or answers or questions or feedback, please fill in the survey that will come with it. And yeah, check out our next event. What's our next event?
Our next event is unconfirmed yet, just because we were going to do something on Microsoft Project and Project for the Web and Planner, but we will.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so yeah, that's right. We have to
stay
wait
tuned. We will send out the next invite shortly.
Yeah, until Microsoft actually releases that. So there will definitely, once Microsoft has released the Planner Premium, watch that space. This will be super interesting. I really like the way that Microsoft is thinking about scheduling and this whole task management. But yeah, we have to wait until they actually give us a release date. Software industries, hey?
Alrighty, thank you everyone for coming. Hope you enjoyed the session, and we will be sending out the recording shortly this afternoon, so you'll have a chance to view that if you need to as well. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Have an awesome day. Bye.
See you all. Bye.